The hall was big enough to fit a city inside it. It had tall glass walls that went all the way up to the sky, and through those walls, you could see the stars. Billions of them, burning quietly in the dark. Every seat in that hall was taken. There were creatures with 4 arms, creatures with no eyes, creatures that floated in tanks of green liquid just to stay alive. There were aliens that were 10 feet tall and aliens that were smaller than a human hand, and they were all here for the same reason. They all wanted to see what the humans were going to do. At the center of the hall stood a long table, the grand table of the Galactic Council. It was made from a rare stone that only existed on one planet, and that planet no longer existed. Around this table sat the 7 most powerful races in the galaxy. The Vorkai sat at the head of the table. They were tall, silver-skinned, with long, thin fingers and eyes the color of dark water. They had ruled the Galactic Council for over 300 years. No race had ever challenged them. No race had ever dared. Until today, Ambassador Daniel Chen walked into the hall alone. He was not tall. He was not impressive looking. He wore a simple dark suit with no medals, no weapons, no armor. He carried only one thing, a small flat case made of old brown leather. The Vorkai leader, High Commander Zale, watched him walk across the hall floor and felt something strange. He felt almost nothing. He had expected more from the humans. He had heard the reports that humanity had grown, that they had ships now, that they had built something in the last 200 years. But looking at this small, quiet man walking toward the grand table alone, Zale almost smiled. Almost, Chen reached the table and stopped. He did not bow. He did not kneel. He just stood there and looked at the council with calm, steady eyes. A Vorkai officer stepped forward and said in a loud voice, "You are here to present a request, human. State your name and your purpose." Chen looked at the officer for a moment. Then he looked at Zale. Then he opened the brown leather case. Inside was a single piece of paper, old paper, white and soft at the edges from age. He placed it gently on the grand table and pushed it toward the center. "My name is Ambassador Daniel Chen," he said. "I represent the United Human Systems. We are not here to make a request." He paused. "We are here to collect." The hall went completely silent. Not the kind of silence that happens when something is boring. The kind of silence that happens when something terrifying has just been said very quietly. High Commander Zale leaned forward and looked at the paper on the table. He did not touch it. "Collect what, exactly?" Zale said, and his voice was calm and controlled, but something behind his eyes moved. "What the Vorkai promised," Chen said. And the whole galaxy watched. Because the meeting was being broadcast. Every screen on every planet in every system was showing this moment live. To understand what happened next, you have to go back. 200 years back. The year was 2187. Earth was dying. Not slowly, not quietly. It was dying fast and loud and painfully. The oceans had risen. The storms had grown violent. The soil in most regions could no longer grow food. There were 11 billion people on Earth and not enough of anything for any of them. The first alien contact had happened 30 years before that, in 2157, and at first the galaxy had been curious about humans, but curiosity faded fast when humans proved to be small, divided, and unable to agree on anything. The other races moved on. Humans were not a threat. They were not useful. They were just there. But in 2187, a human scientist named Dr. Yara Osi discovered something extraordinary. She called it the memory chain. It was a way of encoding a person's entire life, their knowledge, their skills, their decisions, their experiences, into a biological data structure that could be passed to another person or even to a machine. It was not just memory storage. It was the transfer of human wisdom itself. Imagine a doctor who had spent 50 years learning surgery. All of that knowledge could be given directly to a young student in hours. Imagine a general's entire strategic experience being shared with a soldier on the front line. Imagine a mother passing her full love and understanding of the world to her child before she died. It was the most powerful discovery in human history. And the galaxy noticed. The Vorkai came first. They arrived at Earth with 3 ships, gleaming, silver, silent. They said they wanted to help, and at that time, Earth needed help so badly that nobody asked too many questions. The deal was simple. The Vorkai would give humanity access to advanced food systems, weather control technology, and protection under galactic law, meaning no other race could attack or colonize Earth. In return, humanity would share the memory chain technology with the Vorkai. The treaty was written, signed, and recorded. It said clearly, humanity would be treated as full equals under galactic law, forever, with a permanent right to a seat at the Galactic Council, the Vorkai promised, and humanity believed them. Dr. Osei herself handed over 10 years of research to the Vorkai science team. She shook hands with the Vorkai ambassador that day, and she smiled, because she believed that she had saved her world. She had, but not in the way she expected. The Vorkai took the technology, they went home, and then, quietly without any announcement, they deleted the treaty records from the galactic database. They told the council that the deal with humans had been a small private agreement, already completed, of no further importance. No other race checked, no other race cared. Humans were still small, still struggling, still not interesting enough to pay attention to. The Vorkai expected them to fade. They were wrong. Back in the Grand Hall, High Commander Zale looked at the paper on the table. That document, he said slowly, is not in any official record. No, Chen agreed, because you deleted the official record. This is the original physical paper, signed by Vorkai Ambassador Dreth and Human President Alicia Monroe in 2187. We kept it in a vault on Earth, under 2 feet of concrete and steel. We have kept it for 200 years. Zale's long fingers pressed flat against the table. Even if such a document is real, he said, the treaty terms were fulfilled long ago. The Vorkai gave Earth the help it needed. Yes, Chen said, and in return, we gave you the memory chain technology. The treaty also promised us permanent equal status under galactic law and a seat on this council. That part was never honored. You were not ready. We are ready now, Chen said. His voice did not rise, it did not shake, it was just certain. One of the other council members, a wide purple-skinned creature from the Helvari race, leaned forward with confusion. Ambassador Chen, she said carefully, this is a very serious claim. Even if we accept the document as real, 200 years have passed, the galaxy has changed. Surely you are not suggesting... I am suggesting exactly what the treaty says, Chen said. Nothing more, nothing less. We are here to collect what was promised. Another council member, a thin, blue-skinned Tisari, said quickly, and if the council does not agree? What exactly do you plan to do, human? You have... ships, yes, but the Vorkai fleet alone has 10,000 warships. You cannot... We are not here to threaten anyone, Chen said. He reached into his jacket pocket and placed a small data chip on the table beside the old paper. This chip contains a full economic report, he said. I suggest the council reviews it before making any decisions. The Tessari picked up the chip and connected it to the council's display system, and for a long moment, everyone in the hall stared at the numbers floating in the air above the table. One by one, the faces around the grand table changed. The Helvari members' wide eyes went wider. The Tessari's thin mouth opened slightly. Even Zale, the most controlled being in the room, that blinked. Because what the numbers showed was this. Over the last 80 years, human trading companies had quietly, legally purchased controlling shares in 47 Vorkai supply corporations. Human logistics firms now manage the food distribution routes for 9 Vorkai planets. Human energy companies provided 60% of the power grid systems for the Vorkai homeworld. Human medical corporations held the licenses for the 12 most important medicines used across Vorkai space. Human financial institutions held the debt of 3 Vorkai government programs. The humans had not bought weapons. They had not built armies in secret. They had done something far more patient, far more quiet, and far more dangerous. They had made themselves necessary. Every single Vorkai planet depended on human-controlled systems to function. Not a little, completely. The hall was still silent, but it was a different kind of silence now. It was the silence of understanding. It was the silence that comes right before fear. A junior Vorkai officer standing near the wall whispered to the officer beside him, "When did they do all this?" The other officer shook his head slowly. "Quietly," he whispered back. "They did it very, very quietly." High Commander Zale stood up slowly. He was very tall when he stood. His silver skin caught the light of the hall. He looked at Chen for a long time. You planned this, Zale said, for a long time. For 80 years, Chen said, your people planned this for 80 years? Some of them did not live to see it, Chen said simply. But they planned it anyway because humans understand something very well, High Commander. We understand that a debt does not disappear just because the person who owes it pretends to forget. Zale's dark eyes moved across Chen's face, looking for something, anger or pride or hunger for power. He found none of it. He found only patience, and somehow that was worse. What do you want? Zale said finally. The same thing the treaty says, Chen said. Equal status under galactic law, a permanent seat on this council, and a public acknowledgement, broadcast to every planet, that the treaty existed, that it was real, and that the Vorkai deleted it. The Helvari council member made a sharp sound. A public acknowledgement? That would destroy the Vorkai's reputation across the galaxy. Yes, Chen said. You would humiliate them? Chen looked at her carefully. I would tell the truth, he said. What the Vorkai do with the truth is up to them. Zale sat back down. His hands were very still on the table. A Vorkai general standing at the side of the hall moved forward slightly, and Zale raised one finger, just one, and the general stopped, because Zale was smart. He had been leading the Vorkai for 60 years. He had survived wars, betrayals, and political disasters, and right now, every part of his long experience was telling him the same thing. Do not make this worse. We will need time, Zale said quietly, to review your claims. Of course, Chen said. You have 72 hours. After that, our economic partners will begin the process of reviewing their service contracts with Vorkai clients. That review process will take approximately 1 week. At the end of that week, if no agreement has been reached, the contracts will not be renewed. The room understood what that meant. 9 Vorkai planets without food distribution, the Vorkai homeworld with 40% of its power grid going dark, 12 essential medicines no longer available. In 1 week, 72 hours, Zale repeated. 72 hours, Chen confirmed. He picked up the old paper from the table, carefully, gently, the way you pick up something precious, and placed it back in the brown leather case. He clicked it shut. He nodded once to the council, and then he turned and walked back the way he came, alone, quiet, unhurried, across the long floor of the grand hall. Every set of eyes in that hall followed him. Nobody spoke until the doors closed behind him. Outside the hall in the long corridor, Chen's assistant, a young woman named Priya, fell into step beside him. How did it go? She asked. Chen was quiet for a moment. They'll need time to be afraid, he said. And then they'll want to make a deal, he said. Priya nodded. And if they try something else, something more direct? Chen looked straight ahead. Dr. Osei wrote something in her diary, he said. The night before she handed over the memory chain research, she wrote, I hope they are kind to us, but if they are not, I hope we remember this day, and I hope we are patient. He paused. We remembered, he said, and we were patient. Priya was quiet. What do the Vorkai want most? She asked after a moment. Chen almost smiled. The same thing everyone wants, he said. They want this to go away quietly. They want to give us a little something and have us say thank you and leave. And we're not going to do that. Back inside the Grand Hall, the Galactic Council sat in silence for a long time. Finally, the Helvari member spoke. I have been on this council for 40 years, she said slowly, and I have never seen anything like this. Neither have I, said the Tasari quietly. Zale said nothing. He was staring at the place on the table where the old paper had been, a 200-year-old piece of paper, kept under concrete and steel, kept through wars and disasters and generations, kept because humans, small, struggling, ignored, forgotten humans, had decided that a promise was a promise, even if no one else remembered, even if no one else cared, even if it took 200 years. One of the younger Vorkai generals leaned toward Zale and whispered, High Commander, what do we do? Zale was quiet for a long time. Outside the glass walls, the stars burned on quietly in the dark. We think very carefully, Zale finally said. About what? Zale looked at the empty space where Chen had stood. About what kind of people keep a piece of paper for 200 years, he said quietly, and then walk in here alone. The general frowned. What does that tell us? Zale turned to look at him. It tells us, he said slowly, that we have no idea what else they kept. The Vorkai homeworld was called Vel Sharath. It was a beautiful planet, silver mountains, dark blue oceans, cities that glowed at night like scattered diamonds from space. The Vorkai had built it over thousands of years into the most advanced world in the galaxy. Their ships were the fastest. Their weapons were the strongest. Their history was the longest. They had never lost a war. They had never been forced to sit down and listen to someone they did not respect. Until now, High Commander Zale did not sleep that night. He sat in his private chamber at the top of the council tower and looked out at the city below him. The lights of Vel Sharath burned bright and steady. Millions of Vorkai going about their lives, eating their meals, putting their children to sleep, not knowing that 72 hours ago a human with a leather case had walked into the Grand Hall and changed everything. Zale's assistant, a sharp young officer named Kyle, entered the room quietly. The economic team has finished their analysis, High Commander, Kale said. And? Zale said without turning around. Kale was quiet for just a moment too long. Zale turned. Tell me, he said. The numbers are accurate, Kale said carefully. The human report, every figure they presented is correct. Our team verified all of it. How? Zale said. How did we not see this happening? Kale placed a thin screen on the desk. Because they were patient, sir, and because they were quiet. They never made large moves. Every single purchase, every contract, every investment, each one was small enough that it didn't trigger any of our monitoring systems. None of it looked significant on its own, but together it is everything, Zale said. Yes, sir. Zale looked back out at the city. 80 years, he said quietly. Our analysts believe it started even earlier than that, sir. Perhaps 90 years ago, the first human trade company to invest in a Vorkai supplier was registered 101 years ago. A very small company. Very unremarkable. What was it called? Kyle looked at the screen. Osei Trading Solutions. Zale closed his eyes. Osei. The same name as the scientist who had handed over the memory chain research 200 years ago. It was not a coincidence. It was a message, sent 100 years ago, to be received today. They planned this from the beginning, Zale said. It appears so, sir. The woman who gave us the technology, she started this. Her children may have, or her students. The company changed hands several times, but the original owner was a grandchild of Dr. Yara Osei. Zale sat down heavily in his chair. He had lived for 230 years. He had watched empires rise and fall. He had outmaneuvered enemies who were smarter, stronger, and better armed than he was. But this quiet, patient, century-long plan, this was something he had never seen before. What do they actually want, Kale? He said. Not what the treaty says. What do they actually want? Kale hesitated. I think, sir, he said slowly, they want exactly what they said, nothing more and nothing less. No one ever wants exactly what they say. Humans might, Kyle said quietly. On the human diplomatic station 3 hours away from Vel Sharath, Ambassador Chen was eating breakfast. It was simple food, eggs and bread and coffee. Priya sat across from him with a stack of reports. The Vorkai have requested a private meeting, she said. Just you and Zale, no cameras, no broadcast. No, Chen said. Priya looked up. No, everything happens on the record, Chen said. That is not negotiable. The galaxy needs to see all of it. They won't like that. I know. Priya set down her report. Chen, can I ask you something? You can ask. Do you hate them? She said, the Vorkai, after everything they did at the deleted treaty, what they did to the refugees, do you hate them? Chen was quiet for a moment. He took a sip of his coffee. No, he said. Really? Hating them would make this personal, he said. This is not personal. This is a debt. You don't hate someone you're collecting a debt from. You just collect it. Priya looked at him for a long time. You're a very strange person, she said finally. Chen almost smiled. Most ambassadors are. 12 hours into the 72-hour window, something happened that no one expected. A message came through the secure Galactic Council channel, not from the Vorkai, from a race called the Moran. The Moran were a quiet people, pale green skin, large black eyes. They lived on a cluster of small planets near the edge of the galaxy. They were not powerful. They were not famous. Most races barely remembered they existed. But their message was very short and very clear. It said, "We have our own paper. Ours is from 140 years ago. We would like to speak with Ambassador Chen." Chen read the message 3 times. Then he looked at Priya. "Get me a secured channel to the Moran embassy," he said. The Moran ambassador was an old woman named Sarai. Her voice was soft and careful. "Ambassador Chen," she said, "we have watched your presentation to the council with great interest." "I'm glad," Chen said. "What is your paper about, Ambassador Sarai?" 140 years ago, Sarai said, our planet was suffering. A disease had killed 30% of our population. We had no cure. We went to the Galactic Council for help. The Vorkai offered us medicine. The same 12 medicines that your companies now hold the licenses for. Interesting coincidence. Very interesting, Chen said carefully. The price, Sarai continued, was our deep space mineral rights for 200 years. We agreed. We were desperate. We signed. And then, 6 years later, the Vorkai told us the contract had been lost in a data migration error. They said we owed them the mineral rights, but the protections they had promised us were no longer valid. Chen was quiet. They did the same thing, he said. Yes, Sarai said. They took what they wanted and deleted what they owed. We were too small to fight them. We were too sick. We were too frightened. So we said nothing. For 140 years we said nothing. Until now, Chen said. Until now, Sarai agreed. Because now there is someone at the grand table who might actually listen. By the time 24 hours had passed, 3 more messages had come in. The Balari, a race of large gray-skinned builders from the outer systems. They had a paper from 80 years ago. The Kun, small insect-like beings who communicated through vibration. They had recordings from 60 years ago. The Tassari, one of the council members themselves, quietly sent a private message saying that they were reviewing certain historical documents and would like to speak with Chen when the time was right. The Vorkai had not just broken one promise, they had broken many, and everyone had been too afraid to say anything until now. Inside the Vorkai council chambers on Vel Sharath, General Marin, Zale's most trusted military commander, slammed her hand on the table. "This is getting out of control," she said. "First the humans, now the Moran. Tomorrow, it will be every small race in the galaxy lining up with their complaints. We need to end this now. We need to end it hard." Several officers around the table nodded. "What are you suggesting?" Zale said quietly. "The human ambassador," Marin said. "Remove him without Chen. The humans have no face for this. Their council will need weeks to appoint someone new. We use those weeks to negotiate directly with the United Human Systems, quietly, privately, and offer them enough to make this go away before it becomes a movement." Zale looked at her for a long time. "And if we are discovered?" he said. "We won't be." "That is what people always say," Zale said. "Right before they are discovered." Marin leaned forward. "High Commander, in 72 hours they will begin cutting our supply lines. Our people need those systems, 9 planets, millions of citizens. If we show weakness here, if we simply give in to a human with an old piece of paper, every race in the galaxy will know that the Vorkai can be challenged. We cannot allow that." The room was quiet. Zale tapped one long finger slowly on the table. "Do nothing yet," he said finally. "I need to think." But General Marin did not wait. She had her own people, her own network, her own plans. That same night, a message went out from Vel Sharath through a private encrypted channel. It was not signed. It contained only coordinates and a time. The coordinates were for the human diplomatic station. On the station, Priya knocked on Chen's door at midnight. "You should sleep," she said. "I'm reading," he said. She looked at the screen in his hands. "What are you reading?" "Dr. Osi's diary," he said. "The original. We have a digital copy in the archive. I read it sometimes when I need to remember why we're doing this." Priya sat down in the chair near the door. What does she say? Priya asked. Chen looked at the screen. She writes about the day the Vorkai came, he said. She writes that they were so beautiful, so calm and certain. She writes that she trusted them immediately. She says she felt like a child being helped by a grown-up. He paused. And then she writes, I hope this is real. I hope they mean it. I hope we are not making the biggest mistake of our lives by trusting strangers with something this important. But Earth is dying, and we have no choice. So I am going to believe in them, and I am going to write this moment down, so that if I am wrong, at least someone will know what happened. The room was very quiet. She knew, Priya said softly. She hoped she was wrong, Chen said. She wasn't. He set down the screen. She also wrote something else, he said, on the very last page of the diary, written years later, after she found out the treaty had been deleted. What did she write? Priya asked. Chen looked up. They think we will forget. They think we are too small and too broken to remember, but they do not understand something about humans. We remember the things that hurt us most. We remember them perfectly. And we are very, very patient. The attack came at 3 a.m. A small craft, unmarked, no identification signal, approached the human diplomatic station from a dark angle that avoided most of the sensor systems. It carried one device, one very small, very powerful device. It was designed to look like a system malfunction, a power surge in the station's reactor core, an accident. The craft got to within 2 kilometers of the station, and then it stopped, because every single approach vector to the human diplomatic station was quietly blocked. Not by warships, by cargo freighters, 14 human cargo freighters, large, slow, completely ordinary-looking vessels, were parked in a loose ring around the station. They had been there for 6 days. The small unmarked craft sat in space for 11 minutes. Then it turned around and left. Priya found out about it in the morning. She went straight to Chen. There was an attempt last night, she said. Someone tried to... I know, Chen said. She stared at him. You know? How long have you known this might happen? Since before we arrived, he said. We positioned the freighters 6 days ago. Standard precaution. Standard precaution, Priya repeated slowly. Chen, someone just tried to kill you. Someone tried, he said. They did not succeed. There is a difference. This changes things, she said. This is an act of aggression. We should go public. We should broadcast this. The whole galaxy should know. Not yet, Chen said. Priya looked frustrated. Why not? Chen stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the stars were still there, burning quietly the way they always had. Because right now, he said, whoever sent that ship is sitting somewhere panicking. They made a move and it failed, and they do not know what we know. That is useful. If we announce it, we lose that advantage. So what do? Chen turned from the window. We go to the council meeting in 48 hours, he said. We present our case calmly, completely on the record, in front of the whole galaxy. And the attack? Chen looked at her. We save that for the right moment, he said quietly. With 12 hours left in the 72-hour window, High Commander Zale requested a formal meeting. He came to the human station himself. This was unusual. A Vorkai High Commander did not travel to meet someone else. Others came to him, but Zale came. He came with only 2 guards and no ceremony. He sat down across from Chen in a plain meeting room, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Then Zale said, I want to make an offer. I'm listening, Chen said. Full economic compensation, Zale said. A large sum, more than any single race has ever received in the history of the Council. Full equal legal status under galactic law, immediately and permanently. A permanent human seat on the Council. All of it, everything the treaty promised, plus more. Chen nodded slowly. And in return? In return, Zale said, no public acknowledgement, no broadcast, no announcement that the treaty existed or was deleted. We handle this privately, quietly, professionally. Chen was quiet for a long moment. High Commander, he said finally. Do you know what the memory chain technology actually does? The thing Dr. Ose gave you 200 years ago? Zale frowned slightly. It transfers knowledge and memory between individuals. Yes, Chen said. And do you know what the Vorkai used it for? Zale said nothing. Your military used it to transfer battlefield experience to soldiers, Chen said. Your medical teams used it to train doctors faster. Your scientists used it to pass research directly between generations. It has been at the center of your civilization's progress for 200 years. Your point? Zale said carefully. My point, Chen said, is that you built your future on something a dying woman gave you because she trusted you. She trusted you, and you deleted her name from the record. The room was very quiet. The galaxy needs to know that happened, Chen said. Not because we want to hurt you, not because we want power over you, but because the galaxy needs to know that when you make a promise, it matters. It always matters, even 200 years later. Zale looked at him for a long time. Then he stood up. You will not take the offer, he said. No. Chen said. Then we will see each other at the council meeting, Zale said. He walked to the door. He stopped with his hand on the frame. Without turning around, he said very quietly, The people who sent that ship last night, they did not consult me. Chen said nothing. I want you to know that, Zale said. And then he left. Priya, who had been listening from the next room, came in as soon as Zale was gone. Do you believe him? She said. Chen thought about it. Yes, he said. Why? Because he came here himself, Chen said. He didn't send someone. He came. That means he still thinks this can be resolved without more damage. He's trying to control it. Is he right? Priya said. Can it be resolved? Chen picked up the brown leather case from the table. He held it for a moment. It will be resolved, he said, but not quietly, and not without the galaxy watching every single moment of it. He set the case down. Tell the council we'll be there in 12 hours, he said, and tell them to make sure every broadcast channel is open. Priya nodded and turned to go. Priya, Chen said. She stopped. Make sure the Moran ambassador has a seat, he said, and the Balari, and the Kun. They should be there. They've been quiet long enough. Priya looked at him. This is going to be bigger than just us, isn't it? She said. It was not really a question. Chen looked out at the stars. It already is, he said. There had never been anything like it in the history of the galaxy. Not a war, not a disaster, not a discovery. Nothing had ever made every single race stop what they were doing and watch the same screen at the same time. Until now, on the morning of the grand trial, every broadcasting channel in the known galaxy carried the same image. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council. Empty seats slowly filling up, creatures of every shape and size and color walking in and finding their places. The long grand table at the center. 7 chairs for the 7 council members, and 1 extra chair, a plain chair, placed slightly apart from the others, for the first human to ever sit at the grand table. The streets of 1,000 planets were quiet. On the Moran homeworld, pale green families sat together in their living rooms and watched. On the Polari construction platforms floating in space, massive gray workers stopped their machines and gathered around small screens. On Earth, it was 3 a.m, but almost no one was asleep. People sat in kitchens and living rooms and on rooftops under the stars. Watching, an old woman in a small apartment in Accra, Ghana held a framed photograph in her lap. The photograph was of a younger woman in a white lab coat, smiling at the camera. On the back of the photograph, written in faded ink, were 4 words, "We will remember, Yara." The old woman watched the screen and did not blink. Ambassador Chen walked into the Grand Hall at exactly the time he had said he would. Not a minute early, not a minute late. He wore the same simple dark suit. He carried the same brown leather case. He walked to the plain chair beside the grand table and sat down. The 7 council members took their places. High Commander Zale sat at the head of the table. His silver face was completely still. Beside him, an empty chair. The chair for the Vorkai representative who was supposed to present the Vorkai's response to the human claims. High General Marin. She was not there. The council's head speaker, a tall, orange-skinned being named Orvac, called the session to order. This grand session is now open and is being broadcast live across all Galactic Council channels, Orvac said. We are here to hear the formal claim presented by the United Human Systems against the Vorkai Collective. Ambassador Chen, you may begin. Chen stood. He opened the brown leather case. He placed the old paper on the table. He had done this once before, 3 days ago. But this time it was different. This time the whole galaxy was watching. 200 years ago, Chen said, his voice calm and clear, a dying planet made a deal with a powerful race. The planet gave away its most important discovery. In return, it was promised protection, equality, and a voice in the galaxy's future. That promise was deleted from the record. The planet was left with nothing but this paper. He placed his hand flat on the old document. Today we are here to make that promise real. Orvac nodded. High Commander Zale, the Vorkai Collective has the right to respond. Where is General Marin? Zale was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. General Marin, he said slowly, is not available. A low murmur moved through the hall. Orvac frowned. Not available? This is a grand session, High Commander. Attendance is not optional. I am aware, Zale said. General Marin's location is currently unknown. The murmur got louder. Chen said nothing. He simply watched Zale, and Zale looked back at him with dark, careful eyes. They both knew something the rest of the hall did not yet know. What the galaxy did not know, what would not come out until later, was what had happened in the 12 hours before the trial. After the failed attack on the human diplomatic station, General Marin had done something very stupid. She had panicked. She had taken a fast personal ship and tried to leave Vorkai space entirely. She had a plan, a new identity, a destination in the outer systems where the Council's reach was weak. She had made it as far as the 3rd transit gate, where 14 human cargo freighters were parked, the same 14 that had blocked the attack on Chen's station. They had not moved. They were still there. Every exit from Vorkai space that a personal ship could use. Every transit gate. Every jump corridor. Every unreported back route that Marin's team had mapped had a human cargo freighter sitting in it. Not threatening. Not weapons hot. Just parked, doing nothing, being there. Marin's ship had sat at the 3rd transit gate for 40 minutes. Then it had turned around. She was back on Vel Sharath, in a room, with guards outside the door. Vorkai guards, not human ones, because Zale had put them there. Because Zale, whatever his many faults, understood one thing very clearly. You do not make things worse when someone already has you surrounded. Back in the Grand Hall, Orvac was getting frustrated. High Commander, if the Vorkai Collective has no representative prepared to respond, I will respond, Zale said. The room went very quiet. In thousands of years of Galactic Council history, a High Commander had never personally spoken at a formal trial. It was considered beneath them. It was also considered an admission that things were serious. Orvac blinked. Very well, High Commander. The floor is yours. Zale stood. He was very tall. His silver skin caught the light. He looked at Chen for a moment. Then he looked at the cameras. Then he spoke. The Vorkai Collective acknowledges, he said, that a treaty was signed with the human people 200 years ago. The murmur in the hall became a wave of sound. Orvac raised his hand for silence. Zale continued. The Vorkai Collective acknowledges that the record of that treaty was removed from the galactic database. This removal was not an accident. The wave became a roar. Orvac called for silence twice before the hall quieted. Zale did not flinch. He kept his eyes on Chen. Chen kept his eyes on Zale. The Vorkai Collective acknowledges, Zale said, that the terms of that treaty were not honored. The human people were not given equal status under galactic law. They were not given a seat on this council. They were given nothing after they gave us everything. The hall was silent now. Completely, totally silent. Even the creatures in the liquid tanks had stopped moving. Zale sat down. He folded his hands on the table. I say this, he said, his voice quieter now. Because it is true, and because whatever comes next, the galaxy should know the truth of what happened. Chen looked at Zale for a long moment. Then he nodded, very slightly. It was not forgiveness, it was not warmth, it was acknowledgement, one leader to another. Then Chen turned to Orvac. We would like to present additional evidence, he said. Proceed, Orvac said. Chen's assistant Priya walked forward from the side of the hall. She carried a long, flat data screen. She connected it to the council's display system. And then something appeared above the grand table that made the hall go completely still again. A face, old, weathered, pale green skin, large dark eyes. The Maran ambassador Serre, appearing by live broadcast from the Maran embassy. Ambassador Serre, Chen said, "Please tell the council what you told me." And Serre spoke. She spoke slowly and clearly. She told the story of the disease, the desperate deal, the deleted contract, the 140 years of silence. When she finished, her old voice was steady, but her large eyes were bright. "We were afraid," she said. "We were small and sick, and we were afraid. We thought no one would listen. We thought we were alone. We thought this was simply how the galaxy worked. The strong take and the weak are silent." She paused. "We were wrong about one thing," she said. "We were not alone. We were just waiting for someone to be brave enough to speak first." After Serre, there was the Bellari ambassador. After the Bellari, the Kun. Each one told their story. Each one placed their evidence in the record. Each one had been waiting, some for decades, some for over a century, for a moment like this. The hall listened. The galaxy listened. And with every story, the room changed. There is a moment in certain kinds of trials where the mood of the room shifts, where everyone watching stops wondering who is right and starts understanding what actually happened. That moment came quietly, without announcement. It came somewhere between the Bellari ambassador describing how their children's school buildings had been repossessed, and the Kun playing a 100-year-old audio recording of a Vorkai official, laughing while signing a contract he had no intention of honoring. After that recording, nobody in the hall spoke for a long time. Then something happened that Chen had not planned. The Tesserae Council member, blue-skinned, thin, one of the 7 most powerful beings in the galaxy, stood up. He looked at his colleagues around the grand table. Then he looked at the cameras. "I would like to enter something into the record," he said. Orvac looked surprised. "Council member Tessath, this is highly irregular." "Yes," Tessath said simply. "So is everything that has happened in this hall today. I have a document. It is 40 years old. It concerns a private agreement between the Tesserae government and the Vorkai collective regarding mining rights in the Outer Belt. The terms were not honored. I stayed silent because I was afraid of what speaking would cost us." He placed a data chip on the table. "I am no longer afraid," he said, and sat back down. After that, the second Tesserae Council member stood and placed his own chip on the table. Nobody spoke. The chip sat there on the grand table next to the human's old paper. General Marin watched the trial from a room on Vel Sharath. She watched Zale stand and acknowledge everything. She watched the Maran speak, then the Bellari, then the Kun. She watched the Tesserae Council members place their chips on the table, and she felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Fear, not of the humans, not of punishment. Fear of what she had almost done. If that attack had succeeded, if Chen had been killed, this trial would still have happened. Someone else would have walked into that hall with the old paper. The Maran still had their evidence. The Bellari still had theirs. But it would have been different. It would have been darker. It would have been a war. She had almost made everything so much worse. She thought about that for a very long time. Back in the grand hall, Chen stood to give his closing statement. He did not speak for long. He had learned from Dr. Osei's diary that the most important words are usually the ones you choose not to say. "The Vorkai are not the only race that has ever broken a promise," he said. "Humans have broken promises too. We are not standing here today because we are perfect. We are standing here because a specific promise was made, and a specific price was paid, and the promise was not kept." He looked around the hall. "Every race in this room has been watching today. Some of you have your own papers, some of you have your own stories, some of you are wondering if this is the moment to speak or the moment to stay quiet." He paused. Dr. Yara Osei wrote in her diary that she hoped the galaxy was kind. She was not naive. She knew it might not be. But she wrote those words down because she believed that kindness was worth hoping for, even when it was not guaranteed. He picked up the old paper from the table. He held it up so the cameras could see it clearly. This paper is 200 years old. It has survived everything. It survived because someone believed it mattered. We are asking the council today to agree that it matters, that promises matter, that the small and the weak are not simply there to be used by the strong and then forgotten. He set the paper down. That is all we are asking, he said. Nothing more, nothing less. He sat down. Orvac called for a recess, but before the recess could begin, a young Vorkai officer near the side entrance of the hall suddenly pushed through the crowd toward the council table. 2 security guards moved to stop him. He held up both hands. "I have information," he said loudly, "about the attack on the human diplomatic station 3 nights ago." The hall froze. Every camera in the room turned toward him. Chen did not move. Priya, standing beside him, looked at Chen quickly. Chen's face showed nothing. Orvac said sharply, "What attack?" "There has been no report of any attack." "No," Chen said quietly from his seat. "There has not been. We did not report it." Every head in the hall turned to look at him. "You were attacked?" Orvac said slowly. "During the 72-hour window, and you said nothing?" "We said nothing," Chen confirmed. "Why?" Orvac said. Chen looked at the young Vorkai officer who was still standing with his hands raised near the side entrance. "Because we wanted to hear what the Vorkai would say today first," Chen said. "We wanted to give High Commander Zale the chance to speak the truth before we presented everything." He paused. "He did," Chen said simply. The room was absolutely silent. Zale, at the head of the table, looked at Chen. And for the first time since this had all begun, something moved in his dark eyes. It was not guilt. It was not relief. It was something older and quieter than either of those things. It was respect. The young Vorkai officer was brought forward. He gave his statement. He named General Marin. He provided the encrypted message, the coordinates, the time. He had kept a copy because he had known from the moment Marin gave the order that it was wrong. "I served the Vorkai Collective for 20 years, he said. "I have followed orders I was not proud of, but I have never followed an order to kill someone who was simply telling the truth." He set his data chip on the table beside everything else. "I don't think I can follow those orders anymore," he said. The recess lasted 2 hours. When the council returned, Orvac's face was different. Whatever conversations had happened in those 2 hours had changed something. "The Galactic Council," Orvac said carefully, "has reviewed all evidence presented today. We will require additional time for full deliberation. However, we are prepared to make an immediate preliminary ruling." The hall held its breath. "Effective immediately," Orvac said. "The human people are granted full equal status under galactic law. A permanent human seat on the Galactic Council is confirmed. The Treaty of 2187 is entered into the official galactic record as a valid and binding historical document." A sound moved through the hall. Not cheering, not celebration, something quieter than that. It was the sound of something that had been wrong for a very long time beginning to be made right. Outside the hall, in the long corridor, Chen leaned against the wall. Priya stood beside him. For a long moment, neither of them said anything. "It's not over," Priya said finally. "No," Chen agreed. "The full verdict still has to come. Marin still has to face what she did. The other cases, the Maran, the Pelari, they need resolution too." "But today was something," Priya said. "Today was something," Chen agreed. He looked down at the brown leather case in his hand. He thought about Dr. Ose, writing in her diary by lamplight 200 years ago, hoping she was wrong, knowing she was right, writing it all down anyway. "She would have liked today," Priya said softly. Chen looked up. Outside the glass walls of the corridor, the stars were still burning, quiet and steady and patient, the way they always were, the way they always had been. "Yes," he said, "she would have." But none of them knew yet what was coming next, because that night, every screen in the galaxy lit up with a single message. It came from an unknown source. It contained only one line, and that one line made 3,000 races go very quiet. It said, "The humans kept one more thing from 2187, something bigger than the paper, something the Vorkai took and thought they destroyed. They were wrong. Ambassador Chen." The message spread faster than any news had ever spread before, not because someone pushed it, not because any network promoted it. It spread because every single being who read it immediately sent it to everyone they knew. One line, 23 words, and those 23 words made the entire galaxy stop breathing for a moment. The humans kept one more thing from 2187, something bigger than the paper, something the Vorkai took and thought they destroyed. They were wrong. Ambassador Chen. On Vel Shareth, High Commander Zale read the message at 2 in the morning. He read it once. He read it again. Then he called his chief scientist, an old Vorkai named Drev, who had been studying human technology for 40 years. The memory chain. Zale said, without greeting, without introduction, "What happened to the original research Dr. Osi gave us?" Drev was quiet for a moment. "It was studied, duplicated, and then the original files were archived," Drev said carefully. "And the archive?" Another pause. Longer this time. "The archive was decommissioned 80 years ago," Drev said. "Standard procedure. The data was considered fully extracted. Were the original files destroyed?" "They were scheduled for destruction, yes." "Were they destroyed?" Drev did not answer immediately. And that pause, that small, quiet pause, told Zale everything. "Find out," Zale said and ended the call. He sat alone in his chamber. Outside, Vel Shareth glowed in the dark, beautiful and silver and suddenly very uncertain. On the human diplomatic station, Priya found Chen standing at the window again. She had a data pad in her hand and an expression on her face that was somewhere between amazed and nervous. "You sent that message," she said. "Yes," Chen said. "At 2 in the morning." "Yes." "Without telling me?" "Yes." Priya set the data pad down very carefully on the table, the way you set something down when you are trying very hard not to throw it. "Chen," she said slowly, "what exactly did we keep from 2187 that is bigger than the paper?" Chen turned from the window. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. He took out a small metal disc, no bigger than a coin, dull gray, completely ordinary looking. He placed it on the table beside Priya's data pad. She looked at it. "What is that?" she said. "A copy," Chen said. "A copy of what?" "Of everything," he said. "Every file Dr. Ose gave the Vorkai in 2187, every page of research, every formula, every note, every version of the memory chain technology from its very first draft to its final form." Priya stared at the disk. "She kept a copy," Priya said slowly. "She made 3, Chen said. One for the Vorkai, one for the Earth Government Archive, one that she hid personally. She wrote about it in the last pages of her diary. The one she hid, she gave it to her daughter gave it to her son gave it to his daughter, and so on for 200 years. One person in the Ose family always carried it. Until now," Priya said. "Her great-great-great-granddaughter gave it to me 3 months ago," Chen said. "Before we left Earth," she said, "my grandmother always said this day would come. She said to give it to whoever was brave enough to go." Priya was very quiet. She looked at the small gray disc on the table. "Why does it matter?" she said finally. "The Vorkai already have the technology. They've been using it for 200 years. Chen nodded. "They have what they copied from Dr. Osi's original files," he said. "But Dr. Osi's original research contained something they missed, something she removed from the version she gave them. On purpose." Priya looked up sharply. "She gave them an incomplete version?" "She gave them a very good version," Chen said. "Good enough to be useful, good enough that they never noticed anything was missing. But the complete version, the real version, has one additional component that makes everything different." "What component?" Priya said. Chen looked at her. "It works both ways," he said. Priya frowned. "What does that mean?" "The version the Vorkai have," Chen said, "can transfer memory and knowledge from one person to another, but it only works in one direction, from sender to receiver. The complete version, Dr. Osi's real version, allows the receiver to also send back a true exchange, not just a transfer." Priya thought about this. "That doesn't sound that different," she said slowly. "Think about it more carefully," Chen said, Priya thought. And then her eyes changed. "If it works both ways," she said slowly, "then when the Vorkai used it on humans, on the refugees 200 years ago, the ones they experimented on, the humans would have received Vorkai memories too," Chen said quietly. "Not just given their own." Priya's mouth opened slightly. "And if those humans passed that on, through the memory chain, through their children, through generations, Then somewhere in humanity's collective archive, Chen said, is a very large amount of Vorkai memory, Vorkai knowledge, Vorkai history, including things the Vorkai themselves have forgotten, or hidden, or tried to erase. The room was very, very quiet. How much? Priya whispered. Chen picked up the small gray disk. Enough, he said. The news broke at dawn, not officially, not through any council channel, through a single interview that a junior human cultural historian gave to a small independent broadcast network at 6 in the morning. She was young, maybe 30, with bright eyes and careful hands. She sat in a plain chair and spoke calmly for 40 minutes. She explained the two-way memory chain. She explained the experiments on human refugees 200 years ago. She explained what those experiments had transferred, unintentionally, back to the humans who survived them. She explained that the United Human Systems had spent 60 years carefully cataloging everything in that archive. And then she said very quietly, "We know things about the Vorkai that the Vorkai themselves have forgotten. We know things about other races too, things that were transferred during various memory chain exchanges over 2 centuries. We have kept this archive sealed. We have no intention of using it as a weapon, but the galaxy should know it exists." She paused. "The galaxy should know," she said, "that we remember everything." By mid-morning, every major broadcast network in the galaxy was running the story. By noon, 3 Vorkai government officials had resigned. By mid-afternoon, the council had called an emergency session. High Commander Zale arrived at the session looking exactly as he always looked, composed, silver, unreadable, but people who had known him for a long time noticed something different. He moved more carefully, like a person walking on ground they were no longer sure of. Chen arrived at the emergency session and took his seat, the new, permanent human seat, at the grand table. It was the first time he had sat there. He placed the brown leather case on the table in front of him. He placed the small gray disk beside it. He did not speak first, he waited. Orvac opened the session quickly, skipping ceremony. "Ambassador Chen, the council has questions about the statement made this morning regarding a secondary archive of memory chain data." "Of course," Chen said. "Is the archive real?" Orvac said, "Yes." "How extensive is it?" "Extensive," Chen said. "Does it contain information about council members, about their governments, about sensitive historical events?" Chen considered this carefully. "It contains memories," he said, "from individuals who participated in memory chain exchanges over 200 years. Some of those individuals held positions of importance. Some of those memories are, yes, significant." The hall was very still. "And what," Orvac said slowly, "do you intend to do with this archive?" Chen folded his hands on the table. "Nothing," he said. The word landed in the silence like a stone in still water. "Nothing?" Orvac repeated. "We did not build this archive to use against anyone," Chen said. "We built it because it was ours. The memories of our people belong to us. We cataloged them because we are human, and humans catalog things. We keep records. We preserve history. That is what we do." He paused. "But the galaxy asked us what we had," he said. "So we told the truth. We have always told the truth. That is also what we do." A council member from the Dral race, large, stone-gray, rarely speaking, leaned forward. "Ambassador," the Dral said, his voice like gravel, "you are telling this council that you possess what may be the most sensitive information archive in galactic history, and you are choosing not to use it." "Correct," Chen said. "Why?" The Dral said simply. Chen thought about this for a moment. "Because Dr. Osi did not give us that information as a weapon," he said. "It came to us as a side effect of what was done to our people. We did not choose to receive it. We simply received it. Using it to threaten or manipulate others would make us exactly what was done to us." He looked around the table. "We have spent 200 years becoming something," he said quietly. "We do not want to throw that away on the first day we have real power." General Marin was brought into the hall under guard. She walked in straight-backed, her uniform still perfectly pressed, her face showing nothing. But when she sat down in the chair facing the council, and she saw Chen sitting at the grand table, not as a guest, not as a petitioner, but as a council member, Something in her face shifted, just slightly. Just for a moment, Orvac read the charges clearly and without emotion. Unauthorized military action, attempted assassination of a diplomatic envoy, actions taken without council authorization, actions taken in direct violation of galactic law. Marin listened to all of it without moving. When Orvac finished, he asked, "General Marin, do you wish to respond?" Marin was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I acted to protect the Vorkai Collective. By attempting to kill an ambassador?" Orvac said, "By attempting to stop a process that I believed would destroy us." She said, "I was wrong about the method, I accept that. But I was trying to protect my people." She looked at Chen. "You understand that?" she said. "Don't you, Ambassador? You have spent your whole life trying to protect your people?" Chen looked back at her. "Yes," he said, "I understand it." "Then you understand why I did what I did." "I understand why," Chen said. "Understanding why does not make it right." Marin held his gaze for a moment. Then she looked away. "No," she said quietly, "it does not." The verdict on Marin came quickly. Removal from military command, permanent restriction to Vorkai space for 20 years, a formal mark in the galactic record. It was not the harshest punishment possible. Some races in the gallery made sounds of displeasure. Chen said nothing. When Priya leaned over and whispered, "Is that enough?" Chen whispered back, "It is what the law allows. The law should be enough." After Marin was escorted out, the hall prepared for the final part of the session, the full verdict on the human claim. Orvac straightened his papers. He looked at the cameras. He looked at the hall. Then he read, "The Galactic Council, having reviewed all evidence presented, finds the following. 1. The Treaty of 2187 between the Vorkai Collective and the human people of Earth is confirmed as valid, binding, and real. 2. The deletion of this treaty from the galactic database was a deliberate act and a violation of galactic law. 3. The Vorkai Collective is required to make a full public acknowledgement of the treaty, its deletion, and the harm caused. This acknowledgement is to be broadcast on all Galactic Council channels. 4. The Vorkai Collective is required to pay full reparations to the human people, the amount to be determined by an independent council committee. 5. The cases of the Maran, the Belari, the Kun, and any other races with documented claims against the Vorkai Collective are to be heard in full within the next 90 days. 6. A new position is created within the Galactic Council, the Office of Treaty Integrity, whose purpose is to maintain physical and digital records of all treaties, agreements, and promises made between races. No single race will have the power to alter or delete these records. Orvac looked up from his papers. "These findings are final," he said. "The galaxy heard it all, every word, on every planet, in every system." The old woman in Accra, Ghana, looked at the photograph in her lap. She had been awake for 30 hours. She had watched every moment of every session. She heard the final verdict read aloud. And then she did something she had not done in a very long time. She cried, not from sadness, from something that had no easy name, something that felt like a weight she had not even known she was carrying finally, slowly, being set down. In the corridor outside the grand hall, after the session ended, Zale found Chen. They stood apart from the crowds, in a quieter stretch of corridor, near a window that looked out at the stars. For a moment neither of them spoke. Then Zale said, "The memory chain archive. You will really do nothing with it?" "Nothing," Chen said, "even though you could use it to reshape galactic politics for the next 100 years?" "Especially because of that," Chen said. Zale was quiet. "I have been in power for 60 years, he said. "I have made many decisions. Some of them I am proud of, some of them I am not. The Treaty of 2187, the deletion, that was before my time. But I knew about it. I knew and I said nothing, because it was convenient to say nothing." He paused. "I want you to know that," he said. "Why?" Chen said, "Because you gave me the chance to tell the truth today," Zale said. "Before everything else came out, you held the attack back. You let me speak first. You did not have to do that." "No," Chen agreed. "Why did you?" Chen thought about it. Because Dr. Osei hoped the galaxy was kind, he said. She was wrong about the Vorkai 200 years ago. I wanted to see if she might be right about you today. Zale looked at him for a long moment. And? He said. Chen looked out at the stars. The verdict is still open, he said. And for the first time something moved at the corner of Zale's silver mouth. Not quite a smile, but something close. Fair enough, he said quietly. That evening, Chen sat alone in his room on the diplomatic station. The brown leather case was open on the desk. The old paper was inside it. He looked at it for a long time. He thought about Dr. Yara Osi, standing in a lab on a dying Earth, handing over her life's work to a race of strangers, hoping they were good, knowing they might not be, writing it all down anyway. He thought about the Osei family, generation after generation, carrying a small gray disc, keeping a secret, keeping a faith. He thought about the Maran ambassador Sarai, waiting 140 years to tell the truth. He thought about the young Vorkai officer who had named Maran, who had said quietly, I don't think I can follow those orders anymore. He thought about Zale, standing up in front of the whole galaxy and saying, yes, we did this. It was wrong. None of them were heroes in the easy, shining way that stories sometimes describe heroes. They were all just people, people who had been afraid, people who had been hurt, people who had stayed quiet too long or acted wrongly or looked away when they should have looked. And then at different moments, for different reasons, they had done the one small brave thing that was in front of them. That was all. That was everything. Priya knocked and came in without waiting. She sat in the chair across from him. She had 2 cups of coffee. She put one in front of him. How are you? She said. Tired. He said. Good tired or bad tired? He thought about it. Good tired, he said. She nodded. She drank her coffee. What happens now? She said. We go to work, Chen said. We have a seat on the council. We have 90 days of hearings coming. We have an Office of Treaty Integrity to help build. We have the Moran case, the Balari case, the Kun case. That's a lot of work, Priya said. Yes, Chen said. Are you ready for it? Chen looked at the old paper in the brown leather case. He thought about how long it had taken to get to this table. 200 years, 3 generations of one family carrying a gray disc, one woman writing in a diary by lamplight, hoping she was wrong. He closed the leather case gently. We've been ready for 200 years, he said. 3 days later, in accordance with the council's verdict, the Vorkai made their public broadcast. High Commander Zale sat at a plain desk in front of a camera. No ceremony, no grand hall, no silver lights, just him and the truth and the whole galaxy watching. He spoke for 11 minutes. He said everything. The treaty, the technology, the deletion, the refugees, the experiments. All of it. He did not make excuses. He did not explain it as a mistake or a misunderstanding. He said it clearly in plain language, the way Chen had spoken, the way the Moran ambassador had spoken, the way truth sounds when it is finally allowed to be itself. When he finished, he looked directly at the camera. To the human people, he said, to the Maran, to the Pelari, to the Kun, and to all races we have wronged. This acknowledgement is not enough. We know that. Acknowledgement is only the beginning, but it is a beginning, and we offer it without condition. He paused. We were wrong, he said. We are sorry. 3 words, simple words, the kind of words that cost everything to say and sound like nothing until you have waited 200 years to hear them. The young Vorkai officer who had testified against Maran watched the broadcast from a small room where he had been placed under protective custody. When it was over, he sat quietly for a while. Then he picked up a pen and a piece of paper. He wrote a letter. It was addressed to Ambassador Daniel Chen. It said, I don't know if what I did was brave or just the only thing I could still live with. But watching today, I think maybe those are the same thing. Thank you for making it possible to tell the truth. I hope the galaxy is different now. He sent it. Chen read it that evening. He read it twice, then he wrote back 4 words. The galaxy is different. Months later, in the new Office of Treaty Integrity, a young Moran archivist was carefully cataloging old documents. She was pale green, large dark eyes. The same kind of eyes as Ambassador Saray. She was sorting through a box of historical records when she found something. A photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy, so many generations removed from the original that it was barely readable, but she could make out the signatures at the bottom, 2 names, Vorkai Ambassador Dreth, Human President Alicia Monroe, and between the signatures, a date, 2187. She held it very carefully, the way you hold something that has survived a very long time. She thought about all the hands it had passed through, all the people who had kept it safe all the years it had waited. She placed it gently into a preservation sleeve. She logged it into the new galactic record, under a new category that had never existed before. It was called simply Promises Kept. Far away on a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy, in a small apartment in Accra, Ghana, the old woman finally slept. The photograph of Dr. Yara Osei lay on the table beside her. The stars burned outside her window, quiet and steady and patient, the way they always had been, the way they always would be. And somewhere in the spaces between the stars, in the long silence that holds all things, a debt that had waited 200 years was finally, fully, completely paid. Not with anger, not with war, not with revenge, with patience, with truth. With a piece of old paper kept under 2 feet of concrete and steel, and the galaxy, which had seen wars and disasters and the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations. The galaxy remembered this. It remembered the small blue planet that had been dying. It remembered the woman who had written in her diary by lamplight. It remembered the ambassador who had walked in alone with a leather case and 6 quiet words, and it understood for the first time what humans had always known, that a promise is not just words, a promise is a thread, and if you hold on to your end long enough, no matter how long, no matter how dark, no matter how many people tell you to let go, eventually the other end has to answer the end.